Okay, so before anyone jumps down my throat, I know family dinners are supposed to be awkward sometimes. Like, you deal, you make jokes, you take a wine break in the bathroom and text your group chat about how you'd rather be watching TikToks in bed. But last night wasn't that. Last night was, I don't even know. It's like, the universe decided to show me exactly where I stand in this family, and yeah, I got the message. Loud and clear. So, I guess some context first. We do this thing where my in-laws come over every Thursday, and it's never fun, but I put up with it. My husband, Kieran, says it's good for the kids. We have two, a girl and a boy, both under 10, and I'm not out here trying to deprive them of family. Just, IDK, I wish it didn't always feel like an exam I didn't study for. Kieran's parents are old school. Like, his dad, William, legit, thinks women should be grateful just to be kept. And his mom, Alexa, is the type who'll fix your hair mid-sentence or say things like, "Oh, you're wearing that?" and smile so you can't even be mad. I try to keep it light. Make easy stuff for dinner because I'm tired and Thursdays always hit weird after a long week. So anyway, yesterday I made this pasta bake thing. Just pasta, some veggies, cheese, bake it, done. The kids like it, it's easy. And I'd already had like 3 calls about school stuff and 1 meltdown over a lost water bottle before noon. So I was not about to go full MasterChef. I could tell from the second they walked in that William was in one of his moods. You know the kind. He huffs and puffs and acts like everything is an insult to his existence. He's extra with it lately, probably because he's getting older and feels like no one listens to him. Spoiler, we don't, because he never says anything worth hearing. So it starts with the food. I'm just trying to serve it, and he's making these faces like he's sniffing something rotten. The kids start giggling, which just makes it worse because now he's got an audience. He pokes at it and goes, "This the best you can do." And honestly, I'm not even surprised. He said worse. But Kieran, instead of just shutting it down or even ignoring it, starts in with this little smirk and says something about how I only married him for his name and whatever property he thinks we have. Which is wild because we have a mortgage and a car that barely passes inspection every year. I try to jump in. Like, can we not do this in front of the kids? But Kieran cuts me off. Says, maybe if I put half as much effort into the marriage as I do into feeling sorry for myself, we'd have a decent meal. Yeah, in front of everyone. No one says a word. Alexa just pours herself another glass of wine and pretends to scroll on her phone. The kids go quiet, which is honestly worse than the giggling. I just sit. 'Cause what else am I supposed to do? If I say anything, I'm dramatic. If I leave, I'm making a scene. It keeps going. William brings up my job, how it's cute that I work, but I should focus on the home, 'cause that's what real women do. For the record, my mom worked, and somehow our house didn't burn down. He starts in on how I dress, says something about how leggings aren't real pants. And back in his day, women cared about appearance. And it's not even like I look bad. I was literally just in comfy clothes because I was running errands and cleaning all day. Alexa doesn't say anything, just watches the wall behind me like she's waiting for it to move. Kieran's just sitting there, acting like this is all normal, picking at his food like he's above it. I try to get the kids to eat, but they're watching all of this, and I know they're old enough to know when something's wrong. My daughter starts to say she likes the food, and William talks over her. Says, "Of course she does. Kids don't know any better." I want to tell him to shut up, but I'm so tired. I don't feel like fighting. I just want dinner to end. So I take my phone and just scroll. I check Instagram. I text my sister something like, "Kill me." She sends back a meme which honestly does nothing. I hear William say something about how my generation is soft, and how if I'd been in his house, I'd have been sent packing a long time ago. Kieran's laughing. Like, actually laughing. I don't even recognize him the way he's acting. I get that he's always trying to get his dad's approval, but why does it have to be at my expense? Makes no sense. At some point, I just stand up and start collecting plates. Not because I want to, but because I need something to do. Alexa says I look upset, and I just ignore her. I take the plates and dump them in the sink. I don't slam them, but I definitely don't care if they chip. Kieran asks if I'm going to cry, which is insane because I'm literally just trying to get through the night without screaming. I tell him I'm fine. He rolls his eyes. The kids go to their room after dessert. I let them take their tablets because honestly, screw screen time limits tonight. Alexa tries to make some small talk about the weather, like none of this just happened. William is muttering about how the world's gone mad. Kieran actually asks what's for dinner tomorrow. I almost laugh. I tell him I don't know. Maybe he should ask his dad for recipes. He doesn't think it's funny. I finish the dishes and just go to our room. I lock the door. I don't even know why. Habit, maybe. I scroll TikTok for like an hour, mostly just out of spite. Kieran comes in later, doesn't say anything, just changes and goes to sleep. I lay there, thinking about how I'm supposed to just act normal after that. I don't sleep. I think about leaving. Not even like, leave, just going somewhere for the weekend, taking the kids, getting some space. But then I think about how much work that would be, and if I'm just running away or actually doing something. I think about what my friends would say, but honestly, most of them don't really get it. They all just say, that's just how in-laws are, or Kieran's just stressed. Maybe. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I feel like I'm waiting for something to snap. Like, I can't just let this go, but I don't know what to do next. I keep thinking about how easy it was for them to just tear me down in my own house. Like I'm some inconvenience, just there to make food and take up space. I keep thinking about how Kieran looked at me, like he was embarrassed by me, and how William clearly hates me for not being his version of woman, and Alexa just lets it happen, because she's been doing that her whole life. I'm not saying I'm some perfect wife or mom. I definitely have my days where I just want to scroll my phone and let the house go to hell. I forget stuff. I get cranky. I dress for comfort and not for anyone else. But I don't think I deserve to be treated like that. Not by them. Definitely not by Kieran. I keep thinking about what would happen if I just stopped doing everything. Like, if I just let them see what it's like when I'm not holding it all together. Anyway, sorry if this is just a rant. I just needed to get it out somewhere. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I know I can't just keep letting this happen. I'm not the person who just takes it and smiles. Not anymore. We'll update. First update. So I guess I'm back. And yeah, it's wild how fast things can go sideways once you stop pretending everything's fine. I woke up the morning after that dinner and the house just felt off. Kieran was already up, acting like nothing happened, making his coffee, scrolling through his phone at the counter. He actually offered me the last of the oat milk, like he was doing me some huge favor. And I just stared at him because it's wild how someone can be so clueless and so smug at the same time. The kids were weirdly quiet too, which is not the vibe in our house, ever. Usually it's chaos, someone's fighting over the charger, someone else is yelling about their missing hoodie. But no, they ate cereal, barely talking, just peeking at me and then at Kieran. I asked my daughter if she wanted to wear her blue sneakers. She always does. And she just shrugged. My son tried to make a joke about the pasta from last night. He said, at least it didn't have peas. But then he looked at me and stopped. So, yeah, they knew something was up. I got everyone out the door for school drop-off and honestly just sat in my car for like 10 minutes after. Checked my phone, scrolled through Reddit, and got halfway through a thread about someone's neighbor drama before I snapped and realized I was just numb. I texted my friend Tara. We're not super close, but she's the kind of person who always has something to say, and she's not afraid to call people out. I sent her a quick, family dinner was a disaster, want to get coffee? And she said sure, so I went. We met up at this place that's always packed, but somehow there was a table free. I told her what happened and she just stared at me for a second, then went off. She said, "You know your FIL is a dinosaur, and your husband's always been a little too eager to impress him." I kinda laughed, but she's not wrong. She asked why I let them do that to me, and I didn't have an answer. I just said, "It's easier to ignore it than fight every time." But even I knew that was a lie. TBH. She said, "Maybe it's easier, but it's not better." She's right. By the time I got home, Kieran had already texted me like 3 times asking if I was coming back for lunch. We never do lunch together, IDK what that was about. I ignored it, started thinking about what I do for dinner, and then just stopped. Like, why am I planning dinner for people who treat me like the help? No, not today. So I didn't cook. At all. I ordered pizza for the kids, pepperoni for my son, cheese for my daughter, mostly because I didn't want to deal with complaints. Kieran came home, took one look at the pizza boxes, and asked if I was done sulking. I said, "Maybe I'm just done, period." He rolled his eyes, muttered something about how I never let things go. I said, "Yeah, I'm not letting this go actually, not this time." Then his mom, Alexa, showed up. She barely knocked, just walked in like always, acting all concerned, but you could tell she was mostly there to smooth things over and get back to her regularly scheduled programming. She asked if we could talk in private, so I went to the hallway with her. She started off with, "I know William's comments can be harsh, but he's just old-fashioned. Don't take it personally." I just stared at her. I said, "He called me lazy and useless in front of my kids." She said, "Well, he doesn't mean it like that. You know how he is." I said, "Yeah, and I'm done pretending it's okay." She tried to guilt-trip me about keeping the family together, and how Kieran's just under a lot of pressure. I said, "He's under pressure? From what? Sitting at the table while his dad trashes his wife?" She looked uncomfortable, started playing with the zipper on her purse, and said, "You know, William just wants what's best for Kieran." I asked, "What about what's best for me, or for the kids?" She didn't answer. She said, "You're not like the women in our family, you don't just do what needs to be done." I said, "Maybe that's the problem." She slammed the door on her way out. Kieran didn't say a word about any of it. He went to the fridge, grabbed a beer, and sat in front of the TV. The kids were in their room, watching something on their tablets with the volume way too loud. But I didn't care. I just sat at the dining table, scrolling through my old photos, trying to remember when things got this bad. It wasn't always like this. Or maybe it was, and I just ignored it. The next morning, I woke up and decided I was done being the default house manager. I didn't do laundry. I didn't pick up the dirty socks from under the couch. I didn't wipe the kitchen counters or unload the dishwasher. Kieran asked if I'd seen his blue shirt. I said, "Try the laundry basket." He glared at me like I'd just spit in his coffee. I shrugged. The kids noticed, too. My daughter asked if she could have pancakes. I said, sure if she wanted to help make them. She said okay, and we did. Kieran didn't eat. Alexa texted me later saying, "You can't just stop doing things because you're upset." I ignored her. Throughout the day, I realized how much I actually do around here. Not in a, look how much I sacrifice way, but in a, literally nothing gets done unless I do it way. I started taking pictures, groceries, receipts, the piles of laundry, my calendar with all the appointments and school stuff. I put it all in a folder on my phone. Not because I needed proof, really, but because I wanted to see it for myself. Kieran saw me taking pictures and asked what I was doing. I told him, just documenting. He rolled his eyes and said, "You're so dramatic." By the end of the week, the vibe in the house was different. The kids started asking more questions. My daughter asked if we could go to Grandma's. My mom, not Alexa. I said maybe, but Grandma lives like 3 hours away, and it's not exactly a quick trip. My mom called that night, asked if everything was okay. I said, "Not really, but I'm figuring it out." She offered to come up, but I told her not yet. On Saturday, Kieran's dad called again. This time I picked up because I wanted to hear what he'd say. He started in with the same old back-in-my-day stuff, how women didn't run the house, they served their husbands, blah blah. I said, "Well, it's not your day anymore." He said, "You're going to ruin this family with your attitude." I said, "Maybe it needs ruining." He hung up on me. Later that afternoon, Alexa came over again, this time with a bag of groceries and a fake smile. She said, "I brought things for dinner. Let's just start over." I said, "I'm not cooking." She looked shocked. I said, "If you want to cook, the kitchen's right there." She said, "You're serious?" I said, "Dead serious." She huffed, put the bag on the counter and started chopping veggies. Kieran watched from the living room, didn't say a word. When dinner was ready, Alexa tried to act normal, but I could tell she was fuming. She made something with way too much garlic and the kids didn't eat much. Kieran ate in silence, then shoved his chair back and left the table. My son asked if we could have pizza again tomorrow. After dinner, I went for a walk, took my phone, left my watch at home. I just needed air. When I got back, Kieran was in the bedroom, scrolling through his phone. I asked if he wanted to talk. He said, "About what?" I said, "About everything." He said, "I'm tired. Can we not do this?" I said, "Sure." I left the room, shut the door, and went to sit in the hallway for a while. Not because I wanted to cry or anything, just because I didn't want to be anywhere near him. The next day, I started making plans. I made a list of everything I do around the house, everything the kids need, all the errands, everything. I started moving some of my stuff into the guest room. Kieran noticed and asked what I was doing. I said, "Just needed space." He laughed and said, "You're being ridiculous." I said, "Maybe." He tried to grab my arm as I walked by, but I pulled away. He slammed the door behind me. I took the kids out for ice cream that night. We sat in the car, ate our cones, and listened to music. My daughter asked if we were going on vacation. I said, "Not yet, but maybe soon." My son said, "I hope it's somewhere with a pool." When we got home, Kieran's car was gone. I took the kids inside, got them ready for bed, and sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, looking up places to stay for a while. I texted Tara and asked if she knew anyone with a spare room. She said she'd check but warned me it might take a bit. I said, "That's fine. I'm not in a rush, but I am. I'm done waiting for things to magically get better." So that's where I'm at. Not dramatic, not crying, just done. I'm not cooking, not cleaning, not running myself ragged for people who don't care. If that makes me selfish, fine. If that makes me a burden, fine. I'd rather be a burden than a doormat. And yeah, I know this isn't over, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm the one making decisions, not just reacting. I don't know what's next, but I know I'm not going back to the way things were. I'll update when there's more. Thanks if you read all this. Second update. So here we are again. TBH, I thought I was already at my breaking point, but apparently there's always a little further to fall before you finally hit the floor and actually do something. NGL, this one's gonna be long because I need to get this all out, and I feel like if I don't, I'll just keep letting it play in my head on loop. So, IDK. If anyone else ever notices this, but when things get tense in a house, even the dumbest stuff starts to feel like a big deal. Like, a missing charger or someone leaving the milk out suddenly feels huge. That was this week. The house was messy. Like, not even bad messy, just normal stuff. Shoes everywhere, crumbs from the kids' snacks, laundry not folded, whatever. Except Kieran was acting like it was the end of the world. Every little thing, he'd sigh super loud or make some comment about how no one respects the house. He said it to the kids, he said it to me, he even said it to his mom over speakerphone, which was wild because she just agreed with him, and then started talking about how when she was my age, she already had 3 kids, and kept the house perfect, and cooked every meal from scratch. I actually laughed, which she did not like. So I started just not answering. Or I'd say, "Then do it yourself." The kids even started parroting me, which honestly made me feel a little guilty. But also, like, why should they think it's only my job? I could tell Kieran was getting more annoyed every day. I started leaving early in the morning, taking the kids out for breakfast, going to the park, just not being in the house. He texted a few times asking where we were. I said out. One time he called and asked if I was coming back for lunch and I said no and he hung up. Then, on Tuesday, I came home and found Alexa in the kitchen, going through the fridge. She said she was helping out since things seemed to be slipping. I said, "You don't live here." She said, "I'm just trying to keep things together." I said, "You can go home." She slammed the fridge and stormed out. Kieran came in as she was leaving and he was mad. Asked what I said to his mom. I told him honestly that she was overstepping. He said, "This is my family's house too." I said, "Then maybe your family should do the work too." He raised his voice. I didn't back down. He got up in my face, and for the first time ever, I just pushed him. Not hard, just enough to make him back off. He stared at me, and then, this is so childish, he slapped the wall behind me and stomped out. I just stood there, honestly surprised he didn't say anything else. After that, things were just cold. He started sleeping in the living room. The kids didn't ask why. I let them watch extra Netflix. I texted my mom and told her things were bad. She said, "Come down here for a while if you need." I said I would think about it. Tara texted me and said she'd found someone with a spare room if I needed to get away. I said, maybe soon. The next big thing was Thursday. Kieran came home in a mood. I could tell by the way he slammed the front door and didn't even take his shoes off. The kids were in the kitchen with me, working on a puzzle. He walked in, saw the mess, and just lost it. Said, "Is this how we live now? Just garbage everywhere?" I said, "It's a puzzle, not garbage." He shoved the puzzle off the table. My daughter started crying. I told him to get out. He said, "This is my house." I said, "Not for long." He stormed out again. I picked up the pieces, put the kids in their room, and called my mom. I said, "I think I need to get out." She said, "Come tomorrow." I said, "Okay," but I didn't want to just run. I wanted him to understand what he'd done. So I went into the living room, and he was sitting there staring at the TV, but it wasn't even on. I stood in front of him and said, "I'm taking the kids." He said, "You can't just decide that." I said, "Watch me." He tried to grab my arm. I pulled away, and this time I slapped his hand off me. I said, "Don't touch me." He glared at me and said, "You're seriously blowing up this family over some stupid dinner?" I said, "No, I'm blowing up this family because you treat me like trash and let your parents do it too." He said, "This is all in your head." I said, "I have proof," and I showed him the folder of pictures on my phone, all the stuff I do, all the receipts, the calendars, the appointments, everything. He looked at it for like 2 seconds and then tossed my phone on the couch. I went to the kids' room, packed overnight bags, and told them we were going to Grandma's for a bit. My daughter asked if Daddy was coming. I said, "Not right now." My son said, "Is this because of the puzzle?" I said, "No, it's not your fault." As I was leaving, Kieran tried to block the door. I shoved past him. He yelled, "You'll regret this." I said, "We'll see." We drove to my mom's that night. 3 hours in the car, kids fell asleep halfway. I just listened to music and tried not to think about what I'd just done. My mom hugged me for a long time when we got there, made up the guest room, and let me rant for like an hour. She said, "You don't have to go back if you don't want to." The next day, Kieran started blowing up my phone. Calls, texts, voicemails, everything from "come home" to "you're ruining everything" to "I'll change, just come back." I ignored him. Then Alexa started, texts about how I was tearing the family apart and how William was beside himself. Then William called my mom's house phone, which I didn't even know he had, and left a message about how I'm a disgrace, and he always knew I'd do something like this. My mom picked up the phone, listened, and then unplugged it. I spent the weekend just being. Went to the park with the kids, made pancakes with my mom, watched movies, let the kids stay up late. I realized how easy it was to breathe when no one was judging me for existing. Kieran tried to guilt trip me again on Monday. Said the kids needed their dad. Said I was being unfair. Said I was making a scene. I sent him a picture of the calendar with all the appointments he never went to, and said, "You can come see them if you want, but you're not welcome at my mom's." He said, "You can't keep me from my kids?" I said, "Try me." My mom said I could stay as long as I wanted. I told her I needed to figure out next steps. I texted Tara and said, "Let me know if that spare room's still available." She said it is. I guess the thing that really broke the last bit of hope I had was when Kieran texted my daughter's old tablet, the one she barely uses, but he must have known the number from setting it up once, and said, "Tell mommy to call daddy." She asked if she had to. I said, "No, you don't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable." So that's it. I'm out. I'm not going back. He can keep his parents and his house and his attitude. I'll take peace and pancakes at my mom's over walking on eggshells every day. I haven't blocked him completely yet because I want the kids to at least have the option to talk to their dad, but I'm not making it easy for him either. Maybe next time he's tempted to laugh at me in front of his dad, he'll remember what it's like to come home to an empty house and a cold pizza box. Maybe not. IDC. I'm finally done. We'll update again if anything wild happens. But for now, I'm just gonna be with my kids and my mom and figure out what comes next. Thanks for reading if you made it this far. Last update. So I'm just gonna start with this. If you ever want to know how many people think they own a piece of your life, disappear for 3 days and take your kids with you. Seriously, I didn't realize how many ways people could try to reach me until my phone just would not shut up. It's like suddenly everyone had an opinion, everyone was a marriage expert, and suddenly I was a criminal for wanting to eat pancakes at my mom's instead of getting screamed at over pasta. And Gail, I'm kinda impressed by the creativity, but also, I'm just tired. I'm not going back. IDC, how many times they call. So since my last update, we've been at my mom's place. Not fancy, just a small house with mismatched mugs, a fridge full of leftovers, and the world's slowest Wi-Fi. My mom's been making all my childhood favorites, even the weird potato salad I used to hate, which the kids somehow love. And for the first time in forever, I actually slept all the way through the night. The kids are thriving. My daughter keeps asking to water the plants. My son's obsessed with my mom's old puzzle collection, and neither of them has mentioned Kieran except to ask if they could bring their favorite stuffed animals next time. That says a lot, TBH. But yeah, the phone. First, it was Kieran. Calls, texts, missed FaceTime requests, even a few emails. Who emails their own wife? At first, it was all, "Are you okay? Let's talk. Come home." Then it got angrier. "You're being dramatic. You're ruining this family." Then it turned to guilt. "The kids miss me. You're confusing them. Don't do this." I muted everything. I didn't block him completely. I'm not trying to mess with his relationship with the kids, but I'm not about to let him harass me either. My mom said if he shows up here, she'll call her neighbor. Then Alexa started. She texted me like 12 times in a row. All these paragraphs about how family is everything, how I should think about the kids, how I'm hurting Kieran and embarrassing them. She tried to call. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called my mom's landline. I didn't answer. My mom did. All I heard was my mom saying, "I think you need to talk to your son, not my daughter," then hanging up. Then William. I honestly didn't expect him to even bother, but oh, he did. He left a voicemail so long it filled the inbox. Said stuff like, "You never respected our family. You made Kieran weak. You're the reason everything's falling apart." At one point, he said, "You're a burden," just like I warned him. I played it on speaker for my mom, and she just shook her head and deleted it. She said, "Some people never change." Tara's been checking in, asking if I'm safe, if I want company, if I need anything. She even offered to bring over coffee and donuts and just sit in the driveway if I didn't feel like talking. I said not today, but maybe soon. It's nice to know someone's in my corner, even if we're not BFFs or whatever. I think she kinda gets it more than most. She had a messy family thing a while back, and she knows how fast people can turn on you when you don't play along. The real kicker, though? Kieran actually tried to get my own dad involved. They barely get along, but Kieran called him and said I ran away, like I'm a teenager who missed curfew or something. My dad called me, all huffy, and asked what was going on. I told him the truth. Everything that happened, the dinner, the yelling, the fact that I was just tired of being treated like a problem in my own house. He went quiet for a second, then just said, "Well, I'm glad you're somewhere safe. Let me know if you need anything," which is actually huge for my dad, who's more likely to send a meme than say anything serious. So yeah, the phones, the emails, even a DM on Facebook from one of Kieran's cousins who I haven't seen in like 5 years. Everyone wants a say. Everyone wants me to come back, or explain myself, or apologize for making things awkward. But not one of them, not one, asked how I was actually feeling, or if the kids were happy, or if I needed support. It's all about them, their comfort, their image, their peace and quiet. I think the thing that really got to me, though, is watching Kieran try to handle everything I used to do. I didn't even take that much with me. Just the kids, a few changes of clothes, their favorite toys, my charger, and the important stuff like birth certificates and the insurance cards, not trying to be dramatic, just being practical. But suddenly, he's texting like, "Where are the kids' medical records? What's the login for the school app? When is the next dentist appointment?" He's asking about grocery lists, about where to find clean towels, about what time the trash pickup is. I ignored most of it, but for the big stuff, I sent him info. I'm not trying to make the kids' lives harder, but I'm also not going out of my way to make his easier. Figure it out like I did. Alexa tried to guilt-trip me into coming home, said William was losing sleep over his family falling apart. I said, maybe he should have thought about that before he called me a burden in my own kitchen. She said, "You're being petty." I said, maybe. She said, "You'll regret this." I said, not as much as I'd regret staying. The money stuff got weird too, and Gal. Kieran and I always split things in a way that worked for us. I had some bills, he had others, groceries were whoever had time. Suddenly, he's realizing how much actually gets done that he never saw. He called and said, "You need to send money for the mortgage." I said, "You live there. The kids are with me. You figure it out." He got mad, said I was being cruel. I said, "You wanted to be the man of the house, right? Act like it." He hung up. My mom high-fived me. The kids haven't asked about him much. My daughter wanted to call him once, so I let her. They talked for 5 minutes. She said, "Can we go back to Grandma's puzzle now?" William tried one last time. He actually showed up at my mom's door. She answered, told him he could talk to her on the porch, not inside. He said, "You're tearing this family apart." She said, "Then maybe you should have treated her like family." He got red in the face, stomped back to his car, and left. I watched from the window, felt nothing. I got a message from the school asking about the kids, if everything was okay, if they needed anything. I said, "We're fine." I was honest about the move, that things were changing, but the kids would be back soon. The school counselor said, "If you need anything, let us know." I almost cried, because it was the first time anyone actually asked what we needed, not what was easiest for everyone else. So what now? IDK. I'm not moving back. I'm not going to keep pretending for a man who only cared about keeping his dad happy, or for a family who saw me as a maid and a scapegoat. I'm not doing it for the image, for the holidays, for the fake smiles and the ugly dinners where everyone whispers but no one helps. I'm not saying it's easy. Honestly, it's a pain figuring out all the details, and I still have to sort out school stuff, and probably a million little things I haven't thought about yet. But I'd rather do all of that than be a ghost in my own life. Kieran keeps texting. Sometimes he gets mad, sometimes he begs, sometimes he sends me memories from his phone like that'll make me forget all the stuff he said. I just mute him. I told him he could see the kids, but only if he came to my mom's, and only if he could keep his temper in check. So far, he hasn't even tried. I don't know what's next exactly. I know I'm not going back. I know I'm not apologizing. And I know the phone will probably keep ringing for a while. But the best thing is, I don't have to answer. Thanks for sticking with this. Sorry it's messy, but honestly, that's just life right now. We'll update if anything wild happens, but for now, I'm just here. And that's enough.